Hello, my beautiful friends. My name is Kim, and I hope you are having a fabulous day. If you are interested in true crime like I am, I hope that you would consider hitting that subscribe button. But either way, thanks for being here. You guys have been giving me way too much credit. I get lots of comments stating that you like the lesser known cases that I'm covering. Well, that is all you guys. The cases I cover are cases you guys have suggested. So keep them coming. Today's case is no exception. Today we're going to be talking about the case of Lorraine Cox. This case is out of the UK. This is the second case I've done that's out of the UK. Does that make me worldly? No. Lorraine Cox went out for a night of fun with friends she had not seen in a while. While on her way home, a man is seen on CCTV following her. Let's talk about Lorraine Cox. Lorraine Cox, 32 years old, her family described her as the most kind-hearted, loving, generous girl, adding she was the heartbeat of our family. Lorraine Cox was originally from Devon in the UK. She lived in Scotland during lockdown 2020 with her fiance, Elise Fallow. She recently moved back to Exeter, Devon because, like a lot of us, lockdown took a toll on her and she just wanted to be closer to her family. Lorraine was newly back in town as of August 14th, 2020, and was catching up with friends she hadn't seen in a while. Because she was living over in Scotland, she moved back to Devon, UK. The bars were newly just opened back up, so they met up at a bar and had shared quite a few drinks, and Lorraine was said to be a little bit tipsy when she left. As she left, her friends noticed this. She wrapped up the night with her friends pretty late, 2 a.m., the early mornings of September 1st, 2020, not that long ago, approximately only 2 weeks of moving back from Scotland to the UK. Lorraine was walking home from spending time with her friends. You can see her on CC footage. A man is following behind her for quite a while. Apparently, for just over a mile, he followed her. Lorraine was then approached by the 22-year-old man named Azam Mangori. In CCTV footage, you can see Mangori following Lorraine for over a mile before finally making the conscious decision to approach her and somehow convince her to go back to his apartment. Lorraine was intoxicated, so her inhibitions were down, and Mangori promised her more alcohol back at his place. You can see him approach her, and quickly he had his arm around her. At first, I thought maybe he was holding her at knife point or something. It's what it looked like, but there's no mention of that at all. She was, as he said, she was a willing participant at this stage. You can see that Mangori and Lorraine made it to his apartment, but Lorraine never left that apartment and would never be seen alive again. Over the course of the next couple of days, Lorraine's friends were starting to get worried. Lorraine's girlfriend, Elise, was trying to get in touch with her because they spoke every day, and she wasn't getting any answer from her. She's texting, she's calling, nothing. Lorraine was posting on Facebook, but her friends and family said it didn't seem like it was her. She, out of nowhere, suddenly stated that she had moved away to a different city, the city of Plymouth. Lorraine had never talked about moving away from Exeter, and she just had moved back a couple of weeks earlier. It just wasn't adding up. Why would I move there just to move a couple weeks later and not tell anybody? They knew that Lorraine was a diabetic and took medication to manage her diabetes. So the fact that she left without her medication or saying goodbye was concerning. So concerned that they decided to contact the police to file a missing persons report. The family and friends were convinced that the posts on Facebook were not her, and she was reported missing, and the search for Lorraine Cox had begun. It didn't take police long to get their hands on the CC footage of Lorraine being followed by a man. Here is some of that footage that you can see for yourself. Is it just me, or is it eerie that the streets are so quiet? It was during the pandemic and it was really late, but this was like the perfect conditions for a predator. This predator ended up being Azam Mangori, and he would be arrested on September 8th, 2020. Mangori gave the police a false name of Christopher Mayer and claimed he had been homeless. He later gave an explanation for why he had given a fake name. He said he had been brought up in a Kurdish region of Iraq and explained he grew up with very strict parents. So he escaped Iraq to have a new life in the West, in the UK. He said if he were to go back, he'd be stoned for his sexuality. Mangori claimed to be gay and not attracted to women. Police eventually found out that he was being untruthful about being completely gay, as an audio recording of him and Lorraine having a sexual encounter that Mangori recorded himself would surface. Why did he have a recording, you ask? He later admitted to being bisexual, which police could not rule out as he had been in contact with both male and female escorts before the night of Lorraine's death. I believe he didn't want to give his address because there was so much incriminating evidence at his place. So how do you keep the police away from your house? I'm homeless. I don't live anywhere, which was totally false. It was not true at all. The day after the arrest of Azam Mangori, police searched the alleyways behind his apartment and found the dismembered arms and legs of Lorraine Cox. 4 days later, they found her head and her torso at a forest area called Tin Pit Hill, 5 miles away from Exeter. Unfortunately, with the decomposition of the body, the coroner was unable to determine an exact cause of death. However, it is thought she died from asphyxiation as a t-shirt was found stuffed in her mouth. Mangori claimed she died from alcohol poisoning. There are 2 versions of events that happened that night of Lorraine Cox's death. The police's theory with a mix of Mangori's explanation. The police's theory. Police believe the night of Lorraine's death was no accident. They have theorized that Mangori lured Lorraine into his place with the intention of killing her and did just that. This is backed up by videos that had surfaced online of Mangori's vaping Saturday on his bed with the body of Lorraine Cox laying next to him whilst listening to Chop Suey's Angels Deserve to Die. Here are a few lyrics from the song.
I cry when angels deserve to die.
Was this an accident? He took a photo with that music playing? Clearly, this man was all shook up and confused. Not. His Google search history also gives evidence that he searched how to dig a grave by hand just hour after Lorraine was murdered. The actions Mangori took after the death of Lorraine also do not support the actions of someone who witnessed a drug overdose as he claimed it was, that he didn't do anything, that Lorraine had just overdosed. Mangori hacked into Lorraine's Facebook and used her SIM card, convincing her family and friends that she was alive, doing well, and had moved away to Plymouth to start a new life. He even sent the middle finger emoji to her current fiance because Elise was constantly trying to get a hold of her and he wanted her to stop. So he sent this middle finger to like, leave me alone type thing. After a week of leaving Lorraine's body in his apartment, he eventually dismembered her, put her parts and taped them up in a garbage bag and disposed of them. He had even gone as far to remove a tattoo on her body, which indicated she was a diabetic. Police believe he had a sexual interest in dismemberment, as there were videos on his phone of men with prosthetic legs fighting. To me, that's kind of a stretch. I don't know, is that a stretch to you guys? Because he liked watching men with prosthetic legs fighting, he had a sexual interest in dismembering. It's kind of a leap in my mind, nowhere close to the same thing, but give me your guys' thoughts. Mangori's explanation. Okay, take this with a grain of salt. Mangori claimed the way Lorraine died was an accident and he acted the way he did after the fact because he was panicked and wasn't sure how to act in the situation he had found himself in. Mangori says he and Lorraine had a nice conversation on the street, which eventually led to them having a sexual encounter in the alleyway close to his home. He recorded it just in case anything went wrong. What would go wrong? If it's consensual, and has expressed guilt in not recording the whole entire night to try to prove his innocence. If she is drunk, she cannot give consent. But okay, Mangori. They went back to his apartment where they both drank some shots of alcohol, had sex twice, he claimed, and smoked an unknown drug? Mangori claimed that Lorraine pulled out a black substance from her pocket wrapped in foil. She put the lighter underneath the foil, heated it up, and used a rolled up piece of money, a rolled up dollar, to inhale the vapor of whatever the tinfoil thing was. He claims when he tried it, it made him feel weird and he wanted to puke and left his eyes and brain spinning before he eventually blacked out. A toxologist report concluded that Lorraine had no drugs in her system the night she died. Upon awakening, he said he found Lorraine on his bathroom floor, unconscious with a wet patch of urine next to her. He tried to do CPR on her like he'd seen in the movies and eventually realized he didn't know what he was doing. When asked why he didn't attempt to get help, call an ambulance, his response was he was too busy on focusing how to do CPR correctly and didn't know how to call for an ambulance. He considered running away at the moment in time, and then he claims to have seen weird creatures coming out of her mouth, something he now accepts was not real. He put a t-shirt in her mouth to stop the creatures from leaving her body. The cloth was so far in the back of her airway, it would have blocked her airways, which, if this is true and she was somehow still alive in that moment, would have killed her in itself. Mangori later changed his statement, saying liquid was coming out of Lorraine's mouth, not bugs, which is thought to have been because the prosecution proved that the insects could not have been real. Mangori explains the vaping video and the music as something to try and cheer him up and get him out of his depression he was feeling at that time. Get out of here with that. Cheer you up? There's a woman next to you dead. What? He admitted hacking into her Facebook and using her phone, saying it was not rocket science, and explained he did this so he wasn't linked to the body and the people would not come to his apartment because he didn't want any trouble. He didn't want any trouble. You have a dead body in your apartment, sir. He admits his initial plan was to use her Facebook and phone for her until she wakes up, which he expresses he genuinely believed she was going to wake up. Mangori describes the next 4 to 5 days of his life as a living hell, and he fell into an episode of mental health where he believed when he was dismembering her body that he was only chopping up wet tobacco he'd been storing in his apartment. He eventually says that he thought he was hiding the wet tobacco from his boss when asked what he was doing when he was disposing of Lorraine's body. Mangori is seen on CCTV at the store buying supplies to dispose of Lorraine's remains. This footage was after they were seen together. So Lorraine goes missing and then he is seen buying supplies that match how Lorraine was found. He admitted to it. So basically the CC footage was just a confirmation. He is also seen on the footage getting rid of body parts in the alleyway behind his apartment, as well as a large duffel bag that is believed he was carrying the remaining body parts of Lorraine. If the story of Lorraine Cox's accidental death is the truth, which I don't believe for a second, Mangori still did everything in his power after the fact to cover up and hide all the evidence in the body. Instead of helping her and calling for anybody to help her, he did nothing. He pled guilty to preventing the lawful burial of Lorraine Cox. He was sentenced to 20 years in jail on the count of murder after a 5-week trial. The jury only had to deliberate for 5 hours before coming up with a guilty verdict. The partner of murdered Lorraine Cox has revealed the full emotional turmoil her death has caused, saying, "The color has been stolen from my life." Elise Fallow had been living with Lorraine in Scotland and hoping to settle down and raise a family with her. Lorraine had come back to Exeter a few weeks before her death at the hands of Mangori. "The murder of Lorraine is something I will never recover from," she said. "Every day I think about things that will never never happen again. We'll never kiss and cuddle and hold hands. We'll never explore the countryside together. She says the pair planned to have a family together, with Lorraine carrying their child. They had met in 2018 and lived in Exeter together before moving up to Scotland in October of the following year, 2019. I don't think this was an accidental overdose or alcohol poisoning, as Mangori claimed. He was clearly a deeply disturbed person. He kept a body in his house for almost a week. I wouldn't keep a dead body in my house for 5 minutes. End of story. Side note, I know it's October and paranormal stories are the hot topics. Not here. I do not like them or talk about them. I get so creeped out. As well, I am equally creeped out with the dead and bodies. So for him to have her in his house for a week, oh, it stresses me out just thinking about it. So the fact that poor Lorraine was lying in his house to the point where she started to have an odor is disturbing. This is not the actions, in my opinion, of an innocent man. I know UK laws are different as well as their sentencing, so 20 years does not seem like enough time. This man seems dangerous and he's young. He was found guilty and has been proven he is a dangerous individual. So when he gets out, he's gonna be 42. That's pretty young. I don't want to be his neighbor. I'm sorry. Let me know your thoughts on this case. Could he be an innocent man and covering his tracks because he was worried about being deported and being faced with his family, as he mentioned? Stranger things have happened. I don't believe so. Well, if you guys have made it to the end, you guys are rock stars and I love you to death. There are more true crime videos in my Captured Killers playlist for you to check out. Either way, stay safe, my loves, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.